You've ruled out the medical causes, you've increased hydration and removed the pull-ups, but your child is still waking up wet every morning, and you're wondering, what is next to finally help this get better? In this video today, we're going to be talking about bedwetting alarms, something many parents don't even know exists, but they are the intervention with the most research behind it, with success rates of 60 to 70% when used consistently. That's better than any medication, certainly much better than just waiting and staying in pull-ups, and frankly, better than pretty much any other option. I'm Allison Jandu, the potty training consultant, and having worked with close to 20,000 families to help them ditch the diapers for both day and night, I'm here to give you everything you need to know about bedwetting alarms, what they are, how they work, what types are available, and most importantly, how to actually use them successfully. So let's get into it. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2 of this series, please go back and watch those first. In part 1, I covered the medical causes you need to rule out before trying any intervention, and in part 2, I explained why you need to increase daytime hydration and remove pull-ups to create the conditions where learning can finally happen. You cannot skip those steps and jump in with an alarm and expect it to work well. But if you've already done all of that and your child is still struggling with bedwetting, a bedwetting alarm is absolutely your next and probably final step. Now, I'm going to be honest with you up front. This is not a quick fix. This is not necessarily going to be easy. This requires serious commitment from you and your child, but if you stick with it, the success rates are really impressive. So let's talk about what these devices actually are and how they work. A bedwetting alarm is a device that detects moisture and immediately sets off an alarm to wake a child. It has two parts: a sensor that detects when urination begins, and an alarm unit that makes noise and sometimes also vibrates to wake your child up. The goal of bedwetting alarms is conditioning. Over time, which could be weeks or months, generally about 8 to 12 weeks on average, the child's brain learns to associate the sensation of a full bladder with the alarm. Eventually, the brain starts waking the child up before they start peeing so they can beat the alarm, or it learns to suppress the urge to urinate until morning. But the research is clear. If you stick with it, it works more often than not. So before we go any further, you need to ask yourself, am I really ready to commit to potentially up to 4 months of interrupted sleep, laundry, and patience? Because if you're not, that's okay, but don't start yet. Wait until you're in a season of life where you can truly commit. The science behind bedwetting alarms is based on classical conditioning. If you don't know what that means, you might remember learning about Pavlov's dogs in school. Pavlov rang a bell every time he fed his dogs, and eventually the dogs started salivating just from hearing the bell, even without the presence of food. Their brains had created an association between the bell and getting food. Bedwetting alarms work on the same principle, but we're creating an association between the sensation of a full bladder and waking up. Here's what's happening. Right now, your child's bladder sends a signal to their brain that says, I'm full. But that signal isn't strong enough to wake them up at night. They're sleeping too deeply, or their brain isn't prioritizing that signal, or the communication pathway just isn't developed yet, usually because of the prolonged use of pull-ups. The alarm creates a new signal, a loud noise or vibration, that happens at the exact moment wetness occurs. That loud noise is strong enough to wake them up. So now we have full bladder sensation plus wetness plus loud alarm equals waking up. Over many repetitions, the brain starts to anticipate the alarm. It learns to recognize the full bladder sensation as something that will soon lead to the loud and fairly unpleasant alarm sound. The brain doesn't like being startled awake, so it starts waking the child up earlier and earlier, first when they're already wet, then when they're just starting to wet, and finally when their bladder is full, but before they've started wetting at all. For some kids, their brain learns something slightly different. Instead of waking them up, their body learns to produce more antidiuretic hormone at night, so they simply don't produce as much urine during sleep. Either way, the outcome is dry nights. This is sophisticated neurological learning that takes time, but it's also incredibly effective when you give it the time that it needs in order to be successful. There are two main types of bedwetting alarms. The first type is wearable alarms. Wearable alarms have a small moisture sensor that clips directly to your child's underwear right where the wetness would first occur. The sensor is connected by a wire to an alarm unit that clips onto your child's shirt collar or their pajama shoulder, or sometimes velcros around their arm. When the sensor detects even a few drops of moisture, it immediately triggers the alarm unit, which makes a loud sound and usually also vibrates. The pros of wearable alarms include, number one, they're very sensitive. They detect wetness and sound off almost immediately. Number two, they're right on your child's body, so the alarm and vibration are more likely to wake them up. Number three, they work even if your child moves around a lot in their sleep. And number four, you can take them with you for travel fairly easily once your child is comfortable with them so that you don't feel trapped at home. There aren't many cons to wearable alarms, but some kids do find them uncomfortable to wear because of the wire connecting the sensor to the alarm, which can be a little bit annoying and gets tangled up during sleep. Another issue parents have reported is that their child will simply ignore the alarm or just switch it off and then keep sleeping. Some popular wearable alarm brands include the Malum, the Wet Stop, and my personal favorite, the Dry Easy system, which is actually less than $40 on Amazon, and I've linked that for you guys in the description below. The second type is pad or mat alarms. With these, there's a moisture sensing pad or mat that goes on top of the sheet underneath your child. When your child pees, the moisture triggers sensors in the pad, which activates an alarm unit. The alarm unit is usually designed to be placed across the room from your child's bed. Pros of pad alarms include that nothing is attached to your child's body, so they're more comfortable. Placing the alarm across the room means your child has to physically get out of bed in order to turn it off, which helps to wake them up more fully, giving them more feedback, and it makes it more difficult for them to just ignore the alarm altogether. And finally, some kids who resist wearable alarms will accept pad alarms because they feel less invasive. Cons of pad alarms are that they can be slightly less sensitive than wearable alarms, so if your child wets off to the side of the pad, it might not detect it as well. Also, the pad can shift during sleep if your child moves around a lot. They do work really well for stomach sleepers though. They also tend to be more expensive than the wearable alarms. Common pad alarms include the Therapy or the Chummy Pro. So which type should you choose? Honestly, both work. The research shows similar success rates between the two types. I'd recommend thinking about your child's sleep style and their unique preferences. If they sleep relatively still and would be bothered by wearing a sensor, try the pad alarm. If they toss and turn a lot, a wearable alarm might be more reliable for them. And know that if you try one type and it's really not working, you can always easily switch to the other type. You're not fully locked in. Before you even order the alarm, you need to have a conversation with your child about what this whole process is going to be like. So you want to explain to them, this alarm is going to help your brain learn to wake up when your bladder is full. It's going to be loud because it needs to wake you up. At first, it might not wake you up on its own, so I'm going to come in and help you wake up. It's going to take a lot of nights to practice before your brain learns the new pattern, but we're going to do this together. In addition to just chatting and allowing your child to ask all their questions, let them explore the alarm, hold it, press the buttons, select the sound that they prefer to wake to, choose if they want the vibration portion turned on or not, and really experiment with it so they see how it all works and how much moisture it takes to set it off and what it's going to sound like. Some prep in advance can really help it to just all be better received and a better experience. Emphasize that this is not a punishment. The alarm going off doesn't mean that they did something wrong, but it means that their brain is getting the information that it needs to learn. Also, you want to prepare them for the fact that it's probably going to be a little uncomfortable so that they are set up for realistic expectations. Being woken up by a loud alarm is never a pleasant experience, but it's all temporary and it's for a good reason and it's working towards a great goal. Now this point is critical. The alarm has to be loud enough to actually wake your child. If they sleep through it, it's not going to work. Most bedwetting alarms have adjustable volume settings, so start with like a medium-high volume and then you can adjust it from there. Some alarms also have different sound patterns or tones, so you can experiment with those to find out what works best for waking up your child. And if you're using a pad type alarm that goes across the room, make sure that it's truly across the room and not just on the nightstand 2 feet from their head. They need to have to get up and move in order to turn it off, and that's when it's going to be most effective. For the first several weeks, your child might not wake up on their own when the alarm goes off. If this is the case for your child, you will wake up and you will need to help them wake up. If you can't hear the alarm from your bedroom while you're sleeping, you'll want to get a baby monitor set up so that you can take action as soon as you hear the alarm. That fast response is going to be super important. So here's what the routine is going to look like. First, you hear the alarm and you get up immediately. You'll go into your child's room. You're going to want to wake your child up fully. This is important. You don't want them to kind of like sleepwalk through this process. So if you need to, turn on the lights, have them sit up, make sure they're actually awake. Then you're going to guide them to the bathroom. Even if they've already fully voided their bladder, have them sit on the toilet and see if there's any pee left to come out, and or wipe and get cleaned up while they're sitting on the toilet. This reinforces the connection between the urge to pee and going to sit on the toilet. Then you're going to help them change. Get them into some dry underwear and pajamas, change the bedding. If you've layered your bedding like I suggested in the last video, you'll just strip the top layer off and they can climb back into the now dry bed. You're going to reset the alarm by either clipping the sensor back onto their underwear or resetting the pad, and then everyone can go back to sleep. This all might even happen multiple times in one night, especially those first few days. I know it's exhausting, but staying consistent here is everything. And as a little personal anecdote, I do truly know that it's exhausting. My daughter has type 1 diabetes and she was diagnosed at the age of 5. The tech that monitors her blood sugar and insulin delivery often alarms during the night multiple times per week, sometimes multiple times per night. I have to get out of bed and treat the issue either by giving her sugar or giving her insulin, depending on if it's high or low. And that means sometimes sitting up and waiting for several minutes for those treatments to take effect. Because there's no cure, this is now my life forever, or at least until she's an adult and she can take care of it, herself. So if I'm able to do this for the next 8 to 12 years of my life, you are totally capable of doing this for the next 3 to 4 months. I know you've got this. Keep a simple chart or calendar where you track dry nights versus wet nights and how many times per night and at what time the alarm went off. This serves 2 purposes. First, it helps you see progress over time even when it might feel like nothing is changing. You might notice that the alarm is going off later in the night or fewer times per night even before you get full dry nights out of it. Having this data is everything. Second, it's motivating to your child. They can see their progress visually. So consider letting them put a sticker on dry nights or whatever works as positive reinforcement for your family. But obviously you don't want to make them feel discouraged for wet nights either. So just keep reminding them that their body is still learning and that none of this is their fault. This is the biggest mistake families make. They give up after 3 or 4 weeks because they're not seeing results yet. You're gonna need to commit to at least 12 weeks and possibly 16 or maybe even more sometimes. The first month is often the hardest because you're doing all this work and nothing seems to be changing. But the learning is really happening, you just can't quite see it yet. If you quit at week 4, you've done all this hard work without getting to the payoff. Please just stick with it. And if you aren't seeing any improvement at all after the first, say, 6 to 8 weeks, then it could be time to readjust your strategy a little bit. So if you need help deciding what that looks like, you can always contact us here at PTC. You can generally follow the 14-day rule. The general guideline here is that once your child has 14 consecutive dry nights, you can stop using the alarm. You want to make sure that the learning has really solidified. 1 or 2 dry nights could just be a fluke, but 2 full weeks of consistent dryness means that it's pretty safe to say the new pattern is established. Some families choose to taper off and use the alarm every other night or so for a week or 2 before stopping completely, and that's fine too. occasionally, a child will be dry for several weeks or months and then start bedwetting again. This can happen during times of stress, illness, or other major life changes. If this happens, you can bring the alarm back out for a little kind of refresher course, and then usually the second time around it works much faster because their brain has already learned this pattern once. Bedwetting alarms work because they harness the brain's natural ability to learn through association. You're simply providing the feedback and conditioning your child's brain needs to develop the skill without force and without medication. Essentially, it's the same way their brain learned to ride a bike, to swim, or to read. It takes practice, repetition, and time, but once the learning has happened, it's pretty much permanent. And the success rates speak for themselves. 60 to 70% of children who use bedwetting alarms consistently achieve long-term dryness, and that's pretty significant. I want to be honest one more time. This is hard. It requires commitment from you and from your child. There will be nights where you're exhausted and you just want to put a pull-up back on them and go back to sleep. But there's a lot at stake here. Your child's self-esteem, their ability to do sleepovers and overnight trips without stress, and potentially even their physical health if underlying issues are contributing. They deserve this effort. And more importantly, this approach is proven and actually works. No more just waiting and hoping things magically improve on their own. So if you've watched all 3 episodes in this series, you now have your complete plan. Part 1, rule out and address medical causes. Part 2, increase daytime hydration and remove those pull-ups to create the conditions that we need for learning. And Part 3, this video, use a bedwetting alarm consistently to train your child's brain to bladder connection. This process works. It's evidence-based, it's empowering for your child, and it gives them a real skill rather than just waiting for their body to figure it out eventually. You guys have got this. Yes, it's going to be challenging, but you're capable, your child is capable, and together you're able to get dry nights. As always, if you need one-on-one support navigating this process for your specific situation, you can always book a consultation by emailing me at info@pottytrainingconsultant.com. The experts here at PTC are always ready to help. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a lot of information to digest, but I will see you guys in my next video.